what's happened down home.
I sure do, Bill.
I'm leaving at 9 o'clock for Arkansas. We'll be back tonight.
All right. Are you going with Zucker?
Yeah, young stuff.
That's good. I hear John's going. They didn't say anything about you, and I told him to be sure to check that, and didn't say anything about Wilbur Mills.
Yeah, they're going.
Is Wilbur going too?
Yeah.
Well, you all haven't got as good a press officers then.
No, well, I didn't get in till about 12 o'clock this morning.
Well, that's very tragic, and if there's anything I can do or anybody that you want or anyone extra sent in or anything, I told the Air Force to call on each family and in my name or anything that ought to be done that we can do, you just please call me or call Jack direct. And,
well, we'll sure do that. I knew you would feel that way about it.
This is Unexplained America, and I'm your host, Lisa. And today I have a very special guest with me hosting, and he's going to be talking about the Titan II missile fire, and it's Gage Fears.
Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad you're with me. Real quick, I'm going to talk business. So please leave a comment, leave a rating. All of my contact information is going to be in the show notes, and so is Gage's information. So all of his information, his references, he has a book coming out, and so everything's going to be in the show notes. So yeah. And so I'm really excited about this episode, Gage.
Well, I appreciate you for inviting me on.
Yes, and Gage, real quick plug. So my intro music, you created and produced. So just FYI, and I've used it for probably over a year. So yeah, so this is Gage. So I'm gonna let you talk about your book, what's coming out, and then get into the episode. So
my name is Gage Fears. I am an Arkansas military historian. I've worked with Abandoned Arkansas, with the White County Historical Society, the Jackson County, the Mississippi County Historical Societies. I've worked with Preserve Arkansas on a project before, and I currently have a book coming out in January of 2026. Which is a broad coverage of the topic that we are covering on your episode today.
Awesome.
The book is Silent Sentinels, the 308th Strategic Missile Wing. It is a general history of the wing itself. I took about 3 years to produce it. A lot of back and forth with the United States Air Force on what I can release and what they want to release to me.
Gotcha.
I've had to up my prescription on glasses just for this book. I'll say that.
Wow. Lots of reading, huh?
Yeah, a lot of late night reading, and I apologize to my dorm room. I apologize to my dorm mates.
Yeah.
Because my roommates, I'd be up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just sitting there reading about, what did they do here? And he's trying to sleep, and I'm just sitting there reading this entire time. So I apologize to those who had to deal with that.
But this is amazing that you've done all this and you're a student, and so that's really cool. Yeah.
I worked with the Jacksonville Military Museum. I worked with a little bit with the Little Rock Air Force Base on some history for it. I worked with the Titan Missile Museum. They provided some of the information that is covered in the topic that we are covering today.
Okay.
They were a great help. Andrew over at the Pima Air Museum, big help.
Awesome. So lots of good resources there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited. Like I said, I looked at it. I did a very shallow glaze just to kind of know. So I don't know a lot about this and I really didn't want to, because I wanted to hear it and ask questions. So I know just enough to be incredibly dangerous here. So yeah.
So to catch everybody up, the Titan II missile was part of our nuclear triad from 1962 to about 1987. We had 18 of those stationed in hardened silos in the ground in Arkansas, and 2 of them witnessed catastrophic events. Most people know about the Damascus event of 1980. of which David Livingston passed away and 21 others were injured. That was the one that completely destroyed a silo in 1980 and blew the warhead out and into a ditch, of which they covered up with a tent, but it was all over the news.
Oh, wow.
That one overshadows the 1965 incident mainly because that one actually quite literally blew up. And because it was also in the time when news was more accessible.
Hmm.
Between 1965 and 1980, the news will be more accessible. So something like that, especially with an aging system and with the president's directives to improve our nuclear triad, which was what he was aiming for, especially with the MXP Peacekeeper missiles that they wanted to replace the Titans with, but
Hmm.
eventually didn't. You had an entire economy just waiting to get rid of this system. So, coincidentally, you have in 1980 a explosion caused by a ratchet that hit one of the fuel tanks, and once a spark was sent through a fan, ignites all of that fuel and pressurizes inside the silo and blows it like a can of beans.
Gotcha.
So
And
the
this,
19
oh,
yes.
sorry. And this was, okay, so this 1980 event, this was in Damascus, Arkansas, correct? And
Yes.
what part of Arkansas is that? I know I've heard of it.
So
Where?
Damascus is just a little bit north of Greenbrier.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
there's a few silos up there. It's just on this, I think it's Highway 5, Highway 25, I believe is what the highway
Okay.
is. Let me double check that so I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I believe it's Highway 25. The road that leads up to the site now is has been dedicated as Livingston Lane in
Okay.
memory of David Livingston. One of the survivors was a large part in getting that renamed.
Okay, great.
So the 1965 incident, however, is a completely different monster in its own. It has the highest death rate in any nuclear related incident on US soil
Wow.
that I could find.
Hmm.
It's not considered the worst one, but it just has the highest death rate. 53 civilian workers passed away that night from asphyxiation and from flash burns.
Gotcha. Oh, that's horrible. So if you don't care, what, because just in case the listeners don't know, so when was and exactly where did the 1965 happen, and kind of the what, where, when of that?
Yes, so the silo was 373-4 and it's a small area just outside of Pangburn.
Okay.
The
Is it
property is
is it
fenced up now.
Oh, sorry. It's yeah, because I was wondering, because this is in White County.
Yes,
Like, can you access the site now? Like,
you can get all the way up to the cattle guard, which would have been pretty much just near the perimeter of the original site, but you can't go no further than the cattle guard because it's an active it's a company's property.
okay,
They use it for something. They're always bringing trucks in and out of that area.
okay,
Uh there are there's a little monument and a sign just at the end of the old service road.
okay,
Um so if you go out there you'll see it. It's a little granite monument, probably comes up to your knees, and then one of those steel signs that look like the memorial signs you see on the side of the road that have like, may have a historical marker.
okay. And what is that? Because like, is there? I couldn't tell when I was looking at it, like an address per se. What is the service road that gets you there? Do you know?
I don't know the name of it. I just know how to get to it.
Okay.
So,
I'll have you drop me a pin. So,
okay.
yeah. So yeah, and this all came about in, the early 60s and associated with the Air Force Base, correct?
Yes, it was Monday, August 9th, 1965. During this time, the United States had a stockpile of 790 nuclear armed missiles, which included the 54 missiles that were being installed across the United States, the 54 Titan missiles, of course.
Wow.
And
It,
this was just a normal day, you know?
So at this location, so you mentioned the Titan missile. Like, what made it the Titan missile? Is that just the name they gave it, or?
Yes. So you had it was a part of a series. You had the Titan ones and the Titan two. The Titan two w was a two-stage missile. It had first stage would lift you up over 50 miles into the air, and then the second stage would fly you across to the rest or to your destination, and then it would drop. The Titan 2, your payload could be upon impact, or you could have it set to detonate above the ground. It was a vastly major improvement over the Atlas and the Thor and the Titan ones. It was the first missile to be installed inside a silo underground
Okay.
and was one of our longest running nuclear triad systems.
So these silos, like they're underground silo, like how deep in the ground did they want these missiles?
About 130 feet deep was is either 120 or 130 feet deep was how much they poured the concrete. The missiles themselves were 103 feet long.
Okay. Wow. And why did they put them in the ground for like safety or?
It was part of their launching system. Some of them, if they could launch their own.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
they can launch on themselves.
Wow.
So, or by themselves. They they were switched on. They had an integrated battery system, and then they had a 28-volt battery system that could launch, and they can launch within a minute, which was also another vast improvement over the previous generation missiles. So a lot of missiles were put on stands, and then once they put them in there, they had a few reasons as to why they wanted to put it into an actual silo underground. Was one, to protect it from direct strikes from the enemy,
No. Hmm.
and two was to protect it from EMPs. Three was to keep costs down on maintenance, because if you've got a missile just standing out in the middle of nowhere, in the air, it's going to degrade the skin of that missile, and it could also wear out components on the inside if it's just left out to
In the
the
element.
wilderness. Yeah.
So what's an EMP? Sorry.
Electromagnetic pulse.
Okay.
Most, if not all, nuclear devices, when they go off, will produce an electromagnetic pulse. Anything that produces an explosion will have an EMP before its actual destruction.
Gotcha. Okay. So this isn't because I don't know anything about missiles. Okay. Because what I envision a missile is being, dropped or whatever, but really this missile could do its own, like it could go where it was directed and
Yes.
do its own dance. Like it didn't need a plane to get it there.
Oh no.
Okay. Wow.
A Titan II missile could strike Moscow from Arkansas in less than 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and
Wow.
it was our largest. It had the largest armament ever deployed by the United States.
My goodness. And these missiles, obviously that we're talking about this incident in Arkansas, but they were all over the country. Is that correct?
Yes, there were
Oh.
three states. Arkansas at one point was not considered to be a state that was going to receive any missiles.
Mm.
We have Arizona had 18 of them. Let's see, what was the other state? Which is where the museum is.
Mhm.
And then Kansas and Arkansas. Those were the three states. Maine was actually considered to be the state that would get the other 18
Oh,
instead of Arkansas.
okay.
And, you can thank our lovely congressman for bringing in our 18 missiles. They called Arkansas the hole in the donut.
Hmm. Okay.
We
Why?
had
Why?
Um, so it's kind of it's based on the theories of why we put like bombers on our coastal states and why we put our missiles towards the center of our
Oh,
country. It's because it's just based on how we believe the enemies will strike and how we can retaliate faster.
okay.
So it was
Interesting.
kind of a perfect place to put a set of those silos.
Like our location just being
Yes.
central. Interesting. Okay.
Especially since we were what they had considered at the time was a considerably poorer area. They figured that if they put it into a state that has a poorer demographic of people,
Hmm.
they that it wouldn't be as much of a target.
Okay.
That's
Gotcha.
something I remember from the research was why they put in Arkansas was many reasons. And one big one was because, Arkansas is poor and nobody's going to strike Arkansas. And that was an opinion they had at the
Okay.
time.
Interesting. Well, that is very interesting. And they actually like made this silo in what, 61 in the early 60s?
They started around 1960 to 61 and finished them around 1963.
Okay.
Uh, they contracted a few different companies that just come out from anywhere, anybody that knew how to do it and they could trust, especially with if the Corps of Engineers hired you out, like Kiewit was hired for the modifications that they were doing during the incident. But they had a bunch of people just pre-install all of this stuff, and then once they had the silos built, they transferred it over to the Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Air Force to install the electronics and like the diesel engines that have to run in case the power goes out or something.
Gotcha.
So
And so well, and you'll probably start this when we talk about the day of, but so the people that worked at the silo, was it like, okay, let's put it this way, was this like a company, like a civilian company that was in control of the silo, or was the silo under the Air Force, like as far as like workers and management, I guess?
when they were building the silos or when they were modifying the silos, they contracted out to companies to do it. Like I had mentioned, Kiewit was working on the silo when it had caught fire. They hired out Paul Hardman out of, I believe, Georgia, and he was one of the companies to be working on to be building the silos. The Air Force was watching. I mean, they had a two man no loan zone policy, and apparently when the modifications were being done to these silos during Project Yard Fence, every single man had to be accompanied by an airman.
Okay. Okay. So it was like in conjunction, kind of.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, interesting. So this is very interesting. Okay, so I'll let you kind of talk about the day or leading into it or wherever you want to start there.
So, kind of understand why they were modifying this silo.
Mm-hmm.
373-4 was the first silo to go into use by the United States Air Force here in Arkansas. It was the first one to have a crew and the first one to have a missile inside. The missile on that day was 62-006, which coincidentally, I'll bring that back up later.
Okay. We'll
Uh,
circle back. Huh?
it's a very interesting thing that just the number on that missile is
Okay.
very interesting to me. They were modifying it because they were adding neutron shielding, they were modifying the acoustical lining parts of the silo. They were adding new blast door seals because they didn't quite finish the silos when they got them all done. They
Hmm.
found out that they needed modifications and they needed to make them, even more resistant to a strike.
Gotcha. And
So
so sorry. So they started in 63 and then these modifications were happening around August 65.
they started in 60 to 61
Okay.
and they got most of them done around 63 to 64. I
Gotcha.
think the last one was fully finished in like late 63, but they had found that they still needed to add things to it, so they went in around 65.
Okay.
Um, and yard fence was supposed to be uh, a system-wide modification program, but it was halted because of this incident.
Okay.
So they contracted Peter Kiewit, which is a very very large government contractor. They build bridges, they build buildings, they build anything the government wants them to do.
Hmm.
And they don't ask questions. Alice Chalmers, honestly, I don't know why they were mentioned, but they were part of the modification, possibly because they loaned out some equipment.
Hmm.
And Newberry Electric Corporation, they were all part of Project Yard Fence at this site. So what they were doing was called a find and fix program, which is part of what all these little parts that they were fixing was doing. They'd
Hmm.
go in, if it needs to be fixed, you find it, fix it. Most of the story starts where Gary Lade, the sole survivor, would start off, would be it was a normal Monday, and he goes in. It's a normal point up until about lunchtime. They go to lunch. He
Hmm.
comes back, and airmen are up playing some games in the Quonset hut, and everybody else is, either coming back from work or coming back from lunch, or they're still eating lunch.
Hmm.
And he comes in, and at 1:08 p.m., there's two opinions on what started it. But Gary Lay, he says that when he came into the silo from the cableway, which he come into the main entrance of the silo on level 2, you're going
Okay.
to have a long tunnel that leads out to where the missile is from the control center.
Okay.
And you walk all the way down to it, you open the door, and you're going to come right onto level 2, and you're going to see the silo.
And this is all underground, correct?
Yes,
Wow.
this
Okay.
by the time you get down to the entrance of the system itself
Hmm.
from upstairs, you're probably, I would say you're about 50 feet underground just at level, but don't
Wow.
quote me on it.
Sure. Yes.
Once you get there, you're gonna take a right and you're gonna go towards the silo. And once you get to that silo is where he's standing at. And what he says happens. He says he comes out into the silo and he stops to talk to someone. And then from his account, it sounded like when you turn the lighter or the pilot light on a oven, you hear that whoosh
Hmm.
sound. He
Yes.
said that's what he sound. It's what he heard, and then the entire silo lit up really bright, and all the power went out, and there was a fire. And then he tried to find an exit by climbing, and he got up one level and then turned around
Hmm.
and then started walking through the cableway, which is when him and one other man were pulled out by airmen and then thrown into showers for decontamination.
Oh my. Wow. So they were just grabbed on this like catwalk kind
Yeah,
of.
they he
Wow.
had everybody scrambled when this happened. The silo doors were still closed from my understanding. So if you've got a sealed tube
Hmm.
with some oxygen that's being pumped in by like machines, you cut the power off and you've got standing oxygen, and you hit a flame that's that big, it's going to
Hmm.
eat up all the oxygen really quick.
Oh my goodness.
So everybody scrambles, and
Ugh. And they're just kind of
he's
stuck, huh? The
oh
others.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Wow.
everybody was stuck. And
Ugh.
he was lucky to make it out the way he did, because it was pitch black according to him. All the lights were out, and he was feeling his way around. He had to come back down off the ladder and then crawl through to the cableway. And once he got to the somewhat into the cableway, and him and a 59-year-old painter at the time, Hubert Saunders, they were both pulled in once they were discovered. And they were the only two survivors. Once
Wow.
they got decontaminated, they were thrown into an ambulance and rushed over to Porter Rogers Hospital in Searcy.
Wow. Ugh. And so that's like all he knew that I mean, he was like, this happened. He was pulled out, taken to
Yeah.
hospital, so he didn't even know what happened to everyone else.
So the reality of it, what came to
Mm-hmm.
was they found people holding onto the ladder. They found people, laying on the ground trying to find escapes. the it was found that there was contraband items among these men. I mean, they were civilian contractors. They're
Hmm.
not going to be under the same scrutiny of, an airman.
Sure.
Uh,
Hmm.
but there was just, it was a horror scene, honestly. You finding people climbing up ladders and stuck on the ladder once you
Oh.
find them post mortem.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. And
Oh,
it took them 17 hours to clear the silo and find every single missing person.
goodness. And so how many men were down there and what were their duties? What all were they doing?
So there were 53 civilian workers inside the silo at the time of the fire. And 51 of them, no, there were 55 of them, because Hubert and
Gary.
yeah, because Hubert and Gary, they were the two survivors. So there were 53 other men. The official cause as to what the fire is, though, is Gary doesn't know what caused the fire, is what he says.
Hmm.
He doesn't believe what the Air Force says caused the fire.
Gotcha.
The Air Force says that a man with a welder struck a high pressure hydraulic line that was being overstressed by being draped over other things inside the silo. So it had kinks and it was being, stretched and pulled.
Hmm.
So it had a lot of pressure right there. And he was welding a piece of a kick plate in and somehow struck the arc at just the right spot, and it flashed fire because it atomized the hydraulic fluid in it and ignited it, which instantly would have killed him. And then kind of, I would assume, like if you were to open a door when there's a fire, if you open a door on the inside of a house,
Hmm.
how that flame just burst into the room.
Hmm.
um, I think a good example would be like all the older 90s firefighter movies. Like if they opened up a door, you would see the flames just shoot out of a room.
Hmm.
That would be a good example as to what it looked like. It's just as soon as he hit that, it's just gone.
Like a
Everything's gone. All the power,
like a
all the air is
flash.
gone. Yeah, and they once they found everybody, they were able to go in. They brought in some congressmen, they brought in an investigation board, and they investigated the entire thing.
So
They
sorry, who after they pulled out Gary and the painter, like who initially went in? Like who was called to the scene?
so you have let me pull
Sorry.
give me just a second. You're good, you're good. I have a list of them.
Okay.
So in the investigation report, there is a list of everyone that was involved. So you have a list of those that were involved with the investigation, and you have a list of the victims.
Oh, okay.
Um, in that report, the ones that are involved with the investigation, though, are all omitted.
Oh,
And
so they were classified, I guess. They didn't want them or
still classified, but there were some names that were put through the press, like Wilbur D. Mills. I believe
okay.
he was part of it. There were a couple of, let's see, where contracts,
Because I'm
letter.
assuming they called like the sheriff's department at the time and
You would have local and state police possibly responding to an incident that large.
hmm.
But once they got the site cleared, it
Hmm.
was nobody but the Air Force.
Oh, gotcha. It was
And
all federal.
yeah, once you get the site secure, you know,
Hmm.
it's go time for the federal government.
Yeah. So
So I do know that I have like three or four names that are based on that I can pull from that list, and I have them in the book. All right, so when they did the investigation, they pulled 53 souls
mm,
out, and
horrible.
those souls were trucked off to many different places. From what I've found in like newspaper clippings, they were sent to different funeral homes.
Okay.
And one of the main ones was there was one in Cersei that was close to the Porter Rogers Hospital that they sent a few of them over.
Hmm.
Um, they had did they had did all the paperwork and announced that they were dead on the scene at the silo. They had all the paperwork, and I've got some of the paperwork, but I didn't want to show any of that in the book because it's kind of, I feel like that's where the line is of
Hmm.
pointing out history, is showing somebody's death certificate.
Hmm.
So
Gotcha.
I didn't include that. But
So these,
Gary
oh,
Gary and Hubert were sent over to Porter Rogers, treated for their burns. They were there for about 3 weeks.
wow.
And once the Air Force had come in, they called in what they called a Air Force Investigation Safety Board, I believe is what it's called. Let me.
So I'm assuming they conducted autopsies though on the men. And was it were the workers all men?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I believe they did do autopsies. More than likely, they did an autopsy on the man that was there at the epicenter of the fire.
Hmm.
I would at least hope so.
Yeah, gotcha. Did so I guess they all asphyxiated or did they burn? What did they
It was a
say
combination.
combination? Oh, that's
Depend on where you were. You either asphyxiated or you were burned almost instantly because it
horrible.
was a very hot and a very quick fire.
Wow.
It less than probably, I mean, in a few seconds, it burned all the oxygen out of that silo. And
Hmm.
that silo is huge on the inside. I mean, you've got to have a 103 by 30 wide
Hmm.
tube in there, and
Wow.
it's like over, I think it's over 200. I don't want to give that number out.
Sure.
But it's just a very
Large.
large complex.
Gotcha.
Um, let's
So these
see.
men were kind of all over the silo. I mean, in different
Oh
places.
yeah, they were either painting or they were welding. However, apparently nobody was supposed to be welding at that
Gotcha.
point.
Okay.
And there was nobody supposed to be welding on because the fire had initially started on one or two levels below where Gary was standing.
Hmm.
And nobody was supposed to be welding at that time because they were all just coming back from lunch and you had to
Hmm.
get clearance to start welding.
Gotcha. Okay. Huh. So that's why he was
When,
thinking it wasn't what they said, because no
yeah,
one gotcha. Okay.
yeah, that's why he believes that the U.S. Air Force why they were wrong about everything. But at the same time, this is a 17-year-old kid in
Mm.
1965 witnessing, 50 of his coworkers on his first day at that.
Oh my. So he was 17, his first day. Oof.
Yes. Imagine
That
going to
is
work,
horrible.
you're a young kid and you come in and it's just the worst day of your life. And
Yeah.
then, I mean,
Ugh. Oh,
but
yeah,
I've
that's
got this
horrible.
list, by the
Okay.
way. You had William Fulbright, who was on a trip. He had called Lyndon B. Johnson, who was at the White House at the time, to
Hmm.
notify Lyndon B. Johnson of this incident.
Mm.
So he then ordered William Fulbright and, let's see, John McClellan, Orrin Harris.
And John McClellan was the congressman for Arkansas, correct? Okay.
Yes. He was one of our congressmen at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, John McClellan, Orrin Harris, who was a U.S. District Judge at the time. You had, let's see, Wilbur Mills as well.
Mhm.
You had our seventh Secretary of the Air Force, Eugene Zuckert, and Colonel Cosgrove who was the Deputy Wing Commander of the 308th, and Brigadier General Murray Bywater of the 825th Strategic Aerospace Division in Little Rock. They were all
Kind
that's
of
the main list of people that were part of that investigation.
gotcha. Okay. Oh, wait,
So,
sorry, wait just a sec. I gotta let my dog out.
oh, you're good.
She got out. She's been in here with me and then she heard my daughter. So goodness. So these were basically the politicians or big high ups, that
Yes.
were called in to kind of see over this situation
Oh yeah. And the investigation started pretty much
that
that
day.
day.
Gotcha.
Um,
Immediately, huh?
because Lyndon, President Johnson, on a recorded phone call, and you can find the phone call with Fulbright. It's
Hmm.
very short, but it says that he wants it to be investigated and he wants the people to know what has come of their families
Wow.
and that he would take care of it and make
Hmm.
sure that the families are comfortable, and he sent out condolences and everything.
Amazing.
Um, it was a very short call because Fulbright was on a trip and he had to be called from his trip out of the
Gotcha.
country to deal with this.
And so the incident happened at 1 o'clock on Monday, but
Yep.
you mentioned it took until like it took 17 hours
Yep.
just to get all of the men, you know.
So the phone call between Fulbright and Johnson wasn't until 8 o'clock in the morning the next day.
Wow. Mm.
The last, let me find it
So
because I know it.
these poor families were probably, and were these men local to the silo, like the location, like local to White County, as far as, or were they brought in from all over the country to work?
They were brought in from numerous places.
Um,
Hubert was from Louisiana, from what I understand.
okay.
Um,
What about Gary Lay? Was he, what,
Gary was from, I believe he's from the Clinton area.
where is
From
that? Is that
That's
Arkansas?
another, I think that's going to be another half hour to about 45 minutes. I'm a little bit off possibly,
Okay.
but I believe
So
that's another half hour north of Damascus itself.
okay. So he was from Arkansas. Gotcha. Just
Yes.
from a different town. Gotcha.
His dad was working, I believe, on a similar project or something and
Hmm.
had told him about it, so he went to Little Rock Air Force Base to get clearance to work on it
Gotcha.
on a Friday and then came back the next Monday and then the
To work.
incident happens.
Oh.
The If I can find it. Okay. So 17, yes. Okay, so I have it right here. Initial entry from firefighters would not be until 2:45 p.m. the next day.
So,
Well, hold on. Would not be until 2:45.
okay,
Like I
that
said,
this
I haven't had notes in
okay.
a while. It's um
I don't you should know every single detail. No. It's
by 7:45 p.m. the carbon monoxide levels um were reported as way too high to be able to be in there.
so by that evening, oh goodness.
And
Wow.
around 10:40 p.m. is when they announced that 52 casualties were made,
Mm.
but the last body was not found until 5:30 in the next morning.
Oh wow.
So,
Goodness.
yeah, that would explain the 17 hours is because they
Hmm.
had apparently some trouble finding the last person.
Gotcha.
So,
And these poor families of the men. So it's like they knew something happened, but they
oh
didn't
yeah.
necessarily know what happened to their, husband, brother, whatever.
Well, they were notified pretty quickly. I think there's some newspaper clippings, some old
Hmm.
photos showing some of the families on the site.
Hmm.
Um, I
But
believe
but
that
they
day they had notified him, but they left him outside of the perimeter.
gotcha. But they maybe un until they knew that they were past, like they would just know that something bad
Yeah.
happened. Ugh. That is a horrible, horrible day. Mm,
Oh yeah.
gosh.
And when the Air Force did their investigation, there were a few men that were honored for heroic actions for going in on their own with, just a Chemox, mask and going in searching for any survivors or anything. There
Wow.
were a few that were awarded, but they're never mentioned, and I would like to have their names mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, but they weren't honored until a year later.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So the Air Force, when they did their investigation, they found that many men had contraband items on them, such as cigarettes, lighters. Um, in this tight airspace, you've got an air conditioner, but you've got an
Hmm.
enclosed space. So,
Hmm.
lighting a
Anything.
cigarette, yeah,
Hmm.
it's a risk.
Yeah. So this
They
would have been a
found,
no smoking,
oh,
no
definitely.
fire zone.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I believe even the airmen, they had to go up top on the site to go smoke.
Hmm.
I could be wrong about that. I wasn't an airman, so I don't know, but I would assume during this short period, they wanted people to definitely go on to the top side of the site to
Gotcha.
smoke.
Hmm.
Um, the Air Force did their investigation. It took over a year to complete the file, which is also possibly why it wasn't but a year for the men to be awarded for their risk of life
Gotcha.
and for their heroism.
Mhm.
But the Air Force, they came in, and there's a famous photo of some senators and the investigation uh, board of directors inside with these flashlights looking at everything, and it's just charred.
Yeah.
They shut down the site, they shut down the modification program across the entire system,
Wow.
and they did investigations to everybody, including Gary. And when Gary had to go testify in front of a court for the Air Force,
Mhm.
according to him, some of his opinions were not his opinions during that court session.
Gotcha. So it,
Um,
so later on he's recanting, or not recanting, but stating that, was he like instructed to say certain things or something?
I would assume so. It's a 17-year-old kid just,
Mhm.
just witnessed all of this. I'm sure his mind's psychologically, your mind would not be in a good place, so
Mhm.
you're probably a little more vulnerable.
Sure. Yeah. And
And
and all he can speak of is just his experience.
oh yeah.
Yeah, so
And
that's difficult.
And I would assume that some lawyer was possibly working more for the Air Force than it was him.
Hmm.
The government did actually at some point some pay out some money to some of the survivors, but they barely got anything.
Uh,
Uh, from
so
what I s-
yeah, how much did they get? Do you know?
there were many lawsuits.
I can imagine. From
One
all
of
the
them
families and such.
One of them was from one woman,
Hmm.
and she sued Newberry, Martin, Alice Chalmers, and Kiewit for $6.9 million in 2024 money.
Wow.
But the government, through the Aetna Casualty and Surety Company of Hartford, which was the insurance firm for Kiewit at the time, them and the Social Security Office sent out some lump sums, but in 1965 money, it was $225 per family.
Whoa. So you're saying $225 per family
Yes,
was
and
all
the
that they sent out.
The average coverage at that time was for one worker was $116. Now, if I look real quick, $116 in 1965 is equal. Okay, so it equals to about $1,140 in 2024.
See,
Which,
that is absolutely insane. I mean,
yeah.
considering, goodness, just considering the loss of life, but also obviously these are men that could have worked for X number of years, and then they're saying that they're going to take care of their families,
Oh,
which
yeah.
obviously $225 is not going to do that.
So 37 families actually did receive monthly benefits.
Okay.
So,
Mm,
and only five families would receive anything over $300 per month.
wow. Okay.
So,
Ugh.
over, and what it says over a course of time, once they finally got it paid off,
Hmm.
typically families were only paid $25,000
Ugh.
if they had kids that were attending school, or if they didn't have any kids or their kids were not attending, they made $17,000 over time.
Wow. Wow.
And that's in 1966 value, though.
Hmm. But still, maybe would be triple that, maybe 100,000, 200,000 in today's.
So, according to 2024 numbers,
Hmm.
after all the settlements have been paid, you would have made a $250,000.
Gotcha. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's that's so I totally understand that. I guess it was a wife of one of the workers. Do you know which one that sued for the 6.9 million?
So it was a lady out of Hot Springs. I didn't really catch her name
Mhm.
because it didn't go past that one announcement that she did open up a
Mhm.
lawsuit. Maybe they
Gotcha.
paid her off or something
They
before.
settled maybe.
Yeah, they may have settled and it was just a
Mm-hmm.
quiet settlement.
Yeah, probably.
But
Wow.
after 1966, once they got the site cleaned up and they had a missile reinstalled, the site
So
would
they,
become known at
oh, sorry, they reinstalled a missile there?
yes.
Oh,
The only thing, well,
wow.
the only thing that had happened was it had charred the inside and it had charred up some wiring, maybe melted some components, but the missile was completely intact.
Wow.
Um,
Mm,
though it should be known that it was not armed that day.
gotcha. The
Part
missile
of
wasn't armed.
Yeah, part of the yard fence, I think it's constant. I don't know. Part of the yard fence modification was, the rules were you had to pull it out because we had civilian workers. So, we're not going to put some average Joe next to a 9.5 megaton bomb.
Hmm.
They
At least.
had, yeah,
Yeah.
the guys that were working on this system had to go train for months at a time in Texas.
Hmm.
So, we're not, I would understand why, I
Yeah.
don't want, somebody going in just touching it, or just
Yeah.
moving it. Cause apparently there was always a joke that if you touched a missile,
Hmm.
you could throw it off by a few miles.
Oh.
But
Hmm.
these systems were so accurate, you could touch it. It wasn't just fine.
Wow.
But I digress.
Okay.
So after the site was cleaned up and reinstalled and went back on duty, it would become known as the ghost site. And it's a very infamous name because it had a lot of electrical gremlins and such as the tipsy radars on top of the silo. They would go off randomly. Um, for those who don't know, the tipsy radars are these radars that can detect movement up down to, I believe, 15 centimeters. So if you're just standing there and you move
Mhm.
like one leg 15 centimeters, it'll detect it.
So, wow. So the maybe the workers there were saying that this was like a ghost site now
Oh
because
yeah.
of the activity that was
Oh yeah.
happening. Oh.
They would say that there were some accounts that phones would go off, light switches would go off. There would be on the control panels, the buttons. You had some buttons that lit up, and you had some, these some lights that looked like buttons. They would go off randomly, and there would be no faults at all.
Hmm.
Uh, and of course, there were some that would use it as, just a way to, what's the term? When you get a new person in your team and you want hazing.
Hazen.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would use it as hazing, be like, go down to the end of the cableway and, pick up that wrench or something, which
Mhm.
isn't, but
Yeah.
I could assume they would pull a joke like that,
I
and
mean,
then turn
that
off
would
the lights when you get halfway.
that would have been really, I mean, just imagine. So, a year or so after this horrible event happened where, 53 men were killed, like you're working there. That would be
Oh yeah.
super creepy and all of that just negative energy
Oh
even
yeah.
just or just in your
They had
mind like, ugh.
from what I had read and from what I've heard from a couple people is they went in and repainted the silo.
Mhm.
Refitted some of the electronics in there, replaced some things. However, and I don't know if this is just hearsay or if this is true or not,
Mhm.
but according to someone that worked there, there was scratch marks
Oh.
on a wall, and these are steel walls too.
Mhm. Oh.
Somebody had dug their nails into the wall, and no matter how much they painted over it, they could not ever cover that up.
Wow. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just horrible.
But
Mm-mm.
yeah, these machines, they would just go off on their own. You had the
Mhm.
radars up top going off, and they would detect something like if a dog was running in their path or something,
Mhm.
but nothing would be up there.
Hmm.
And it kept that name up until the end of its service. In 1980, there were on Blast Lock 1, which is like the main door
Mhm.
for the silo. A mural was painted and they wrote on it Ghost Site. So that's how like big of a name within the 373rd and the 374th that
Hmm.
this term was, especially in the 308th.
Wow.
But everybody called it that, so they're gonna. And on that blast lock, there is a picture in the book, but it's got some kind of creepy house and the Grim Reaper and a graveyard painted on there.
Wow. So they painted this within the silo.
Yes, and it's
Wow.
possibly still there, although during the last few years they may have stripped it, but the
Hmm.
photo exists, which is how we know that,
Hmm.
somebody did that. But around the same time, some families of the victims had put some money together, and they had put some money together and funded a memorial,
Hmm.
and it's sitting outside the Jacksonville Museum of Arkansas Military History right now. It is
Okay.
a large granite statue that has the names of the 53 men on the front of it,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's to honor those men. They paid for it with their own money, and then it was put out for display on Little Rock Air Force Base
Hmm.
and then was transferred later over to the museum.
Gotcha. Wow, so the families actually had to do the memorial and
Yep.
not the Air Force. Wow.
And there are two memorials. There's the one that's out on the road, which I believe may have been paid for either by private donors or by someone that does the memorial markers.
Hmm.
Possibly someone like Preserve Arkansas or something like that.
Hmm.
The one out in front of the Jacksonville Museum is about, if I had a good guess, probably 10 foot tall.
Okay, so it's
So,
rather large
oh yeah,
memorial.
so it's a big piece of granite too. I would have hated to see the price tag on that.
Wow. And so the one out on the road where the silo is and okay, so the silo itself was in commission until 1980, correct?
Until so it was 19 3-4 was one of the first ones to go, so it would have been between 85 and 86 is when it was shut down. The last Titan silo in Arkansas was there in 87 though.
Okay, gotcha.
So
Okay. So it was in commission till about 87-ish.
just about.
Gotcha. And do you know, like you may have said this, like was the site sold? Like you mentioned, like a business owns the site now, correct?
So the Air Force bought the land back in the early 60s, although some people like to argue that they tactically acquired the land. Uh, but that's through their domain, some kind of domain thing that
Oh, okay.
apparently the Air Force can acquire property easier than we can.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Yeah.
th- it's something domain. I forget what the
Mhm.
term is, but because of the START treaty that we made between the USSR and because we were closing and shrinking our nuclear arsenal,
Mhm.
which allowed us to have more efficient and rely rely on less systems.
Mhm.
We had to get rid of our Titan II silos. So once they had disposed of all the technology and they had sealed up the silo and made it basically unusable, they sold the land back to whoever would buy it. They did give the previous property owner the first bid. Though I assume with the way the Air Force is, they probably wanted a lot of money for that property
Mhm.
during that time. So,
Gotcha.
very possibly not everyone got the land back. Though there are stories that some families did keep their land, like the family that owns the land that the Damascus silo was on. They
Mhm.
were the family that owned that land before the Air Force took it.
Mhm.
The land that this site is on is used half and half. It's used for an industrial use and it's used for a gun range now.
Oh, okay.
I've talked to the owner and they used to let people out there, but over the years, people have just kind of ruined trust with him, so he doesn't
Mhm.
really let anybody out there anymore.
Sure.
But most of these sites are owned by private owners now. There are some that are owned by like phone companies. There's the one that's closest to Heber Springs, the one that's like the farthest north up there in the hills. That one
Mhm.
is owned by a phone or some kind of electric company. So,
Gotcha. It seems like, and I could be totally wrong, but it seems like there is a Titan silo that's now, and I don't remember where it was, maybe closer to Valonia, maybe Faulkner County in Arkansas, but like it's like a Airbnb. Is that accurate? Am I
yes.
thinking that?
Yes,
Like,
that's Titan Ranch, and
okay.
that is Mr. GT Hill. It's a very nice project. He created a one-to-one replica of one of the missiles that you can stay in.
Wow.
I met him a couple years ago when he was at the museum measuring the museum's nose cone, or
Mhm.
re-entry vehicle as it's really called, but everybody will know if I say nose cone.
Gotcha.
Um, he was measuring out the nose cone so he could because he has on his replica the nose cone for his is an actual nose cone. He got it from Amark, I believe. But you go inside that, and from the photos I've seen, it is a very, very nice place inside. He spent a lot of money, and he's won a lot of awards for it. He's been on
Mhm.
TV a lot for it. Very commendable project, especially preserving the history of one of these sites. Got to give
Mhm.
it to him.
Do you think you'll ever stay in the site?
I can't afford to.
How much is it? Is
I
it?
believe it's about $600 per person per night.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
Let me
Yeah, it seems
see.
like I had watched, it seems like I saw someone on my Facebook or something mention staying there or whatever. So I thought, oh, that's
I'll look here.
interesting. But I don't see myself wanting to stay underground. So
Yeah.
no, thank
I
you.
mean, it'd be fun.
Mhm.
Let me see what he says the prices are.
I'm not adventurous, Gage, so I'm not.
From what I've seen, it could be less than 600, so I
Hmm,
that's one of those don't quote me things, but
okay.
from what I've seen for like businesses, if you want to tour like if you want to if you want to host an event there,
Hmm.
it's, let's see, half a day event, and this is off of his own website. He used to have the prices there on the
Okay.
website, and for a full day, it was like over $1,000 just to host an event there.
Okay.
Um,
So he just rents it out for different
oh
events,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
That's very interesting and
you can
smart.
rent it out for yourself or for your family for, however many days he may have open, or you can host an event there, and he's making his money back, I assume.
Yeah,
So.
that is very interesting. That is not my cup of tea, but that is very interesting. So,
I mean, I would love to stay in a silo like that someday.
yeah. Put it on your list, your to-do list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, um, anything else you want to share with us?
I might have some stuff.
Okay.
Not a lot. There are some books that I think some people should look into, and there's one book definitely that relates to this title.
Hmm.
Dr. Jason Olsberger from, I think he's part of either Arkansas Tech or University of Arkansas.
Okay.
He's a psychology professor. He wrote a book on the psychology behind grief, and because his grandfather was involved in the incident,
Oh, wow. Mm.
he got in contact with some of the victims' families, and he did some psychology on, like, he studied grief through this
Hmm.
incident.
This problem.
It's a very good book. It's called The 53 Rituals, Grief, and the Titan II Missile Disaster. Let's see. Dr. David Stumpf, he's got a book that covers the entire Titan II missile system, but he has a short portion that covers this incident.
Hmm.
Um, I don't recommend Command and Control, though.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Everybody loves Command and Control, but that's more on the Damascus incident.
Oh, gotcha. Not necessarily
And
this 1965 incident.
no,
Gotcha.
I think people tend to think when you when you mention this one, people tend to think of the 1980 incident. One, because it was more covered, and because of this book
Hmm.
uh, that Mr. Eric had put out. So they're going to immediately think, oh, you're talking about the 1981 where it blew up. No, this one did not blow up. It's
Hmm.
just hydraulic fuel had ignited
Hmm.
and a fireball ignited inside the silo and ate all the air up.
Hmm.
Speaking of the Damascus one, the this was probably my favorite like little fact about this whole incident is the missile that was there during the incident in 1965 was the missile that was in the silo at the Damascus incident.
Oh my, so that same missile or same type, like the
Same serial number.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, is it a cursed number maybe?
You see
Um,
that you see that's what I personally think is you hear all the time about cursed objects.
mhm.
What's to say a ballistic missile can't be cursed?
Mhm. Oh goodness, that is very creepy. So
Oh
that
yeah.
same serial number. Ooh,
Yeah.
goodness. So did the Air Force, I'm guessing obviously they put out their report and they were the ones that said it was the hydraulic, right? The welding or whatever.
Yes.
Did they have any secondary problem? Because obviously there were issues with safety concerns.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that they made a lot of policy changes after this.
So they definitely did make a lot of policy changes. They used this incident as part of fire training. There was a fire board that the United States has. It's called I believe, the Fire Investigation Board. Let me look at it real quick. U.S. Fire Investigation Board, if it even still is a thing. So Arkansas has stuff like the Fire Protection Licensing Board, but when you get federal government involved with stuff like this, they're gonna change stuff. Like I said, they had used this one for training later
Hmm.
on like safety conditions, on like not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do this, and this is why. The Air Force's overall opinion was that the hydraulic fuel was burst by a welder, and they took out the part where they took about maybe I think 12 inches of line, and it had the part where it looks like it was hit by a welder, and they
Hmm.
took it out and they tested it, and there's some video footage. They did about 30 tests to see if they could replicate the issue, and about a third of them did ignite. So
Gotcha.
that's where, so they were like, that's enough evidence to prove that even though it can't happen every time, it can still happen, and it was a freak and a flash fire.
Gotcha.
But at the end of their investigation, they said that the incident was caused by a lack of safety discipline, poor safety practices, which you and I have been discussing.
Hmm.
This is, quote, a lack of safety discipline, poor safety practices, and violation of safety directives by the contractor contributed to unsafe acts of hazardous conditions. You had airmen playing card games when they were, up in the Quonset hut when they were supposed to be down in the silo supervising all of this.
Hmm.
From what I understand, there was a very limited amount of actual airmen inside the silo at the time. You had the men that were running the silo, because you had a team who would operate the silo on normal time, and then you had all these extra guys there for security and for their no loan zone. But you had thick, and I mean thick, wires and cables draped over. And part of the investigation, they said there was wires and cables draped over everything. They had mats covering things. They had, like they had all the contraband items like cigarettes and lighters.
Hmm.
Um, they had lights dangling from places where they didn't need to be hanging.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was just a mess.
Yeah. So lots of different safety issues going on.
Definitely.
That's terrible. I had watched a documentary. It's interesting that I had watched a documentary and it was on the Titan that imploded, the submersible. Do you know what the Titan? it was the submersible that imploded around 23 or
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So I
The
was
one, the
watching a
billionaire one.
yes, and I was
Yeah,
watching, and it's interesting that it, of course, it has the Titan name, and then you've got the anyway. They think there's something with that name, but anyway, they and of course they were going down to the Titanic, but in the documentary, the Coast Guard is doing the investigation, and one of the Coast Guard investigators is like, unfortunately, all of these policies, all of these things that are safety procedures, and laws and policies are written in blood, and that's the
yeah,
bad part. It's like it takes something like this horrificness happening for,
yeah.
things to maybe be made safer in the future or whatever. But uh, it's just I can't even imagine that poor Gary Lay. I just can't. Is he still living?
Oh yeah, and
I was about to
he's
say
one
he's
of the
probably not very old
oh yeah,
because he's
he's one of the nicest older gentlemen you'll ever meet. He loves to just sit there and chat. Although he'll tell you the same story over and over again, so his story doesn't change. Um,
interesting. Awesome.
but I do remember that there were some. I've got these names for you if you'd like.
Okay. Yes.
The ones that were honored that they never mention.
Yes. That'd be
So
great.
I found these names in like newspapers.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just kind of glossed. People just kind of gloss over information like this.
Hmm.
So you have Staff Sergeant Robert Cunningham, Airman First Class Joseph Rawlings, John Shell, Ronald Clayton, Airman First Class William Hand, and Airman Second Class Donald Drjanovich. They were all awarded the Airman's Medal for their heroism, involving voluntary risk of life at Titan II Missile Complex 374 and they were honored in January of 1966. And people just kind of pass over this information. Mr. Rawlings and Mr. Trajanovic, they both entered the silos early in the incident to
Hmm.
depressurize the propellant tanks,
Oh, wow.
which the propellant tanks was also the same issue that the 1980 incident had. So
Oh.
them going in there and depressurizing these tanks when you've got, high heat and you've got low oxygen going on and everything, you've got a fire possibly still burning somewhere in there.
Hmm. Wow. So,
Depressurizing these tanks is a very big deal.
yeah. So that was definitely, yeah, heroic.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. My goodness. Oh, I wonder if, and you mentioned, of course, that you spoke to the current owner of the land. By chance, did they mention any experiencing any paranormal?
He's never mentioned anything on it. He let me out there a few years ago to take some
Mhm.
photos. The site's dead.
Oh,
It's
mhm.
if
Is
there
there
is any,
anything visual, like when you walked out there? I mean, because everything was underground, but is
yeah.
there visuals above ground that you can see?
So the concrete pads for the hard stands are still out there. The access panels to possibly like the communications, like you had manhole covers on surface level for like communications and like plumbing and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Those are still out there. The concrete they used to cover up the silo door.
Hmm.
Once they blew up the silo door, they covered it and then they paved over it.
Okay.
It's there. It's mostly just pieces of concrete there
Hmm.
now. You could possibly still get into the silo. You'd have to find out where the access port is, though.
Hmm.
Um, from my understanding, there's two access ports. There's a ladder that goes from the back of the control center, and it's just a ladder straight all the way down, and then you got to crawl through a tunnel to get in. Or you could do what Mr. GT did, and you could bust open the main door and just let all the water flood out.
Gotcha. And
So.
yeah, so he could go in and fix it up. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a very expensive procedure.
I I
So,
can only imagine. That is very, very interesting. Wow. And horrific and interesting. So goodness. So has
oh yeah.
anything, I guess, I mean around 87 you said these silos were shut down. So really
Yep.
as far as incidences, nothing has happened. And I guess were there any other incidences other than the 1980?
When they were building the silo out in just outside of Rosebud, it's the one that you'll see when you're coming in from Cersei. I believe it's 3-2. I could be wrong, but a man, when they were building it, they hadn't even had the concrete filled in. They had just gotten the 130-foot hole dug,
Mm-hmm.
and a man standing on the top fell
Oh,
to his death.
oh gosh.
Um, and the lady that was owning, or the lady that owns the property now, she was a kid when that had happened, and she had told me that her mom had took her out there to meet to meet somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and a general had come out while they were scooping up the man from the bottom, and she said that is burned in her memory and will be forever.
Oh.
Um, there was, let's see, a couple incidents at the Center Hill site, which is it's close to the Smyrna Church. A private family owns that one, but there was a man who died from freon poisoning.
Mm.
I believe one or two of them did. I've got that reported in the book. When they were designing the silos, when Martin Marietta was designing the silos, one of the blast locks, which weighs, good Lord, many tons,
Mm-hmm.
fell on a man at
Oh,
their factory, and
crushed
he
him. Or,
perished. He perished there immediately.
oh wow. Oh, that's horrible.
And during this whole time, while they were building the silos, they had at Cape, I think it was at Kennedy and at Canaveral, they had protests because of the way they were being, it was terrible conditions to work in, but they weren't being paid as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you had union strikes, which kind of halted a little bit on the progress of the building of these silos in Arkansas.
Okay. Oh.
Um,
Mm.
there's a few incidents that have happened, but the most reported is usually the one that's going to be the biggest and the loudest.
Yeah.
So,
Like the 65 and the 80
yeah,
incident. Yeah.
which they need to be covered, but
Mm-hmm.
there's the smaller incidents that have,
Mm-hmm.
just painted a picture for it. It was a dangerous time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this was gosh, very interesting. Well, please, so I'm going to put this episode out before your book airs, and we'll kind of talk about that, but plug your book title and when it's coming out.
The book is Silent Sentinels, the 308th Strategic Missile Wing, and it is published through Pen and Sword / America Through Time. It will be available pretty much anywhere you can get a book, January 26th, 2026.
Okay, great. And that is okay, so that's a Monday. So yay. So Monday, January 26th of 26, it'll be
Yep.
available. Okay.
And
Anywhere you can buy a book, like Amazon and everywhere.
yep, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, maybe in about 3 months after it's released, books by the pound.
Okay.
Um,
There you go. Everywhere. There you go.
maybe a Goodwill at some point. But it's not a very long book. It's about 130 pages or so, but
Okay.
it's got some photos and some information that hasn't really seen the light
Mhm.
till this book.
Okay.
So,
Great. So thank you so much, Gage, for discussing this episode. This is very fascinating. It was very obviously horrific, but I really appreciate you being here today and telling our listeners about it. And they definitely need to go read your book in January.
well, I definitely appreciate it. I had a lot of fun meeting a lot of people with when I was writing this book. So,
Mhm.
um, but the more people that know about our state's history, the better. And I just, my main thing is I hope that everybody finds it within themselves to at least do some kind of research for themselves.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and that's always been my big thing is do research for yourself to find out, because there's a lot of people out there that don't even know what Sling Blade is.
Mhm. Do you mean like the movie?
Yeah, I mean maybe it just dates me, but
Yeah.
I find myself trying to explain that movie a lot to people around me.
Mhm.
It's like, but no, it's I do appreciate you having me.
Oh, yeah.
The book does come out in January. It's a bit of a technical read, I will be honest. There's a lot of stuff in there about like specifically like how systems work. It doesn't go into complete depth, but
Gotcha.
there's for the average reader it may be a little heavy on the
Technical side.
technology and science.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of readers that will be very interested. So, yay. And I appreciate you. So, yeah. And please leave a comment. Of course, follow me on all the social medias and such. And you can, in the show notes, like I mentioned, all of Gage's information will be there. So, yay. Well,
all right.
thanks so much, Gage. And bye.
Bye-bye.